Every morning after the brief overnight pause, the railway engines start up again. The old locomotives, black with coal and soot, by now used only for shunting or on local lines, snort and sigh, whistle and move their pistons, letting off clouds of steam. The modern streamlined locomotives, painted with bright colors, are a complete contrast as they leave the sheds and pass the old steam engines. This young engine driver whistles in quite another key as he starts his day's work to the lively tune of a song. He takes his locomotive from the sheds to the turntable and sets it on the right line for their day's haul. When the turntable is opposite the right line, the locomotive moves forward and leaves the table to pick up its train. As they leave the sheds, the various types of locomotive come onto the turntable, almost as if they were on parade. Each of them has a number. Here is 646, whose 12 electric motors constitute one of the latest and most successful developments of Italian railway engineering. Having left the sheds, the locomotives go towards the station on the connecting lines. We see our friend the engine driver, who waves to us. Here is a diesel locomotive. Here is locomotive 636, two rail cars coupled together. Here is 646 again, running beside a train in arrival. And here is the Prince, the Aga Khan of trains, the Sette Bello. A washing tunnel gives us the opportunity of seeing an unusual sight, the washing of a whole train which arrived very early in the morning. As one would expect, not only trains take a bath in the morning, this pretty girl does too. She is a hostess whom we shall see later in a different role from a bathing beauty, and less offended too. In the meantime, the train, having been washed, goes to the rolling stock park, where other trains of various composition and from all sorts of places are parked. All the carriages are checked and cleaned after every journey. A comparison between the various types of carriage in the park will give us an idea of their construction. Here is a modern first-class carriage with its perfected suspension over the bogies. And here are the simple springs and steep steps of a third-class carriage promoted by influence to second class. This carriage is by now ready for demolition. It is a real antique. Let's look inside. Instead of the toilets, we find wheels, iron bars and chains, and a double row of the most uninviting benches. Now let us visit something more modern. Here is the interior of a rail car, shining with pegamoid and chromium. Now let us look at another carriage where we can watch an interesting metamorphosis. A normal second-class compartment is transformed in a few minutes into a cabin with 6 bunks. If you require even more comfort, it is very simple. With the same second-class ticket, and by paying a small supplement, one can travel in a comfortable, elegant single sleeper. The daily activity of the railway does not end with the running of trains. Here is a factory where rail cars are constructed. These caissons, each of a different color, correspond to a phase of construction. Inside one of the caissons, a workman is spraying a wall with asbestos paste, which is later compressed and thus forms a layer of insulation against heat and noise. Contrary to their appearance, these are not Martian scouts exploring the earth, but workmen who are sandblasting the walls to clean off rust and scale. The masks protect their faces from sand forcibly projected from the pistols. A quick glance at the store shows us a row of seats ready for mounting in the cars, shelves full of cupboards, fire extinguishers and various accessories, and emergency seats. Now we are on one of the stretches of line where work is in progress. They are renewing the rails and ballast. Here we see the rails being welded together in stretches several kilometers long. The rails are first welded together for several hundred meters, freed of the spikes and clamps, lifted onto little rollers so that they can expand freely, and heated with a special apparatus. After this, the various sections are welded together. The procedure we have seen avoids the difficulties which would otherwise arise from expansion due to changes of temperature. This looks like the neck of a prehistoric monster, but it is only part of a machine for lifting and cleaning and relaying the ballast. This excavator penetrates under the sleepers, breaks up the tightly packed ballast and raises it to where it is sorted and washed. Cleaned of refuse and soil, the ballast returns to the track. Then the ramming machine with its vibrating hammers settles it into the roadbed. Over these modern tracks run fast, safe trains of all kinds, express trains. The Trans-Europa Expresses, which link some of the most important capitals. Blue trains like this one, which we see crossing this new type of level crossing. The increased safety margin and speed of action of this type of gate marks a notable step forward in the field of railway communications. We are on the locomotive driven by our friend the engine driver, and we go into the cabin to watch the safe passage of the modern track with its welded rails. One hardly feels the wheels of the train pass over the joints. Now let us leave our friend to continue his journey. Return to Rome terminus to find that pretty girl whom we met before. Now, in her blue hostess's uniform, she is going on duty on an electric express train. We follow her as on board she goes down the corridor to welcome the passengers and make them at home for the trip. She explains to this gentleman who is struggling to open the window that the train is air-conditioned. The hostess returns to her cabin whilst the passenger consoles himself with the radio in the wing of his seat. The minutes pass. The train moves, and the hostess sends her ritual welcome over the loudspeaker system.
Benvenuti su questo treno. Siamo partiti in perfetto orario. Il servizio audiotreno è lieto di annunciarvi che fra pochi istanti andrà in onda un programma di musica registrata in notizie appositamente creato per voi. Signore e signori, buon viaggio!